Now to our business update, and we're going to be taking a look at the World Economic Forum, which is kicking off in Davos, Switzerland. The theme this year is cooperation in a fragmented world, and our business editor, Charles Pellegrin, is here on set with more. Hi, Charles.
Hi, Aaron. Absolutely. This is the 53rd annual meeting of the World Economic Forum, and 52 heads of state or governments will be joining more than 1,500 business leaders in the snowy Alps for this. The war in Ukraine, the energy crisis, inflation, and climate change are all top of the agenda. Our business editor, Kate Moody, is joining us live from there. She seems a little cold, but thanks for being with us, Kate. So what can we expect this week?
Well, in addition to a lot of snow, Charles, we're going to be having a lot of very high-level discussions about the challenges ahead. The theme of this year's meeting is cooperation in a fragmented world, and it's really the common thread that runs through all of those challenges that you just mentioned. Now, the divisions were felt a little bit at last year's rather unusual mid-season meeting. It was held back in May. It was the first in over 2 years since the start of the pandemic. But the very spirit and identity of Davos is that globalized world of cooperation. And it's a system that's really struggling to keep up with the shifting balance of global power and the crises of the moment. Now, we are expecting to hear this week from Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, although whether by video link or possibly in person is still unclear. There will be no Russian presence here at all. Ursula von der Leyen will be here from Brussels. China is sending its vice premier. That's the highest level delegation from China in Davos in several years, and it will be the first foreign trip for a high-level government official since China lifted its COVID travel restrictions. Now, the risk of a looming global recession, the effects of the energy crisis and high inflation on households and businesses, especially on the most vulnerable families, the ever-widening impact of climate change, all of these are going to be headline issues, along with discussions on things like labor trends, the culture of leadership, gender parity, digitalization, data security. I'll be bringing you all the latest throughout the week, including a special debate in partnership with the World Economic Forum about Europe's energy security and competitiveness. That'll be broadcast on France 24 this Friday.
Kate Moody, thank you very much, and we're looking forward to those updates throughout the week. And a new report by Oxfam, released to coincide with the start of Davos, shows that one of the factors for fragmentation in the world is, well, inequality. The report calls for immediate action to tackle the widening wealth gap between the world's super rich and the rest of the planet, a gap that worsened after the pandemic, with 2/3 of the wealth generated since then going to the top 1% of earners. That's $26 trillion. Yuko Waye has the story.
Snow is back in Davos, and so are protesters, calling for a more just world.
We demand a change in economy, away from profit-based, more to economy that actually cares about people and the environment.
We're in favour of wealth taxes. We really want to reduce this level of wealth inequality in the world that's so corrosive to society.
The staggering level of wealth inequality, something Oxfam is calling to address in its annual report timed to coincide with the start of the World Economic Forum. The anti-poverty group wants immediate action to tackle a post-COVID widening of the rich-poor gap, saying the world's richest 1% pocketed almost 2/3 of all new wealth amassed over the past 2 years.
Poverty has increased for the first time in 25 years. At the same time, these multiple crises all have winners. The very richest have become dramatically richer, and corporate profits have hit record highs, driving an explosion of inequality.
The report notes that the super-rich's fortunes are increasing by $2.7 billion a day, while at least 1.7 billion workers now live in countries where inflation is outpacing wages. Oxfam says a tax of up to 5% on the uber-rich could raise enough money to lift 2 billion people out of poverty. It's also calling for a windfall tax imposed on big food companies, similar to what some governments levied on energy firms. The NGO says some corporations are using war-induced inflation as an excuse to pass on even bigger price hikes to consumers.
Let's move on to the markets now, and we're seeing a mixed trading in Asia this hour. The Shanghai Composite and the Kospi in Seoul both trading higher. European markets opened higher this Monday as a whole, as you're about to see. Investor sentiment lifted by the data showing slowing inflation in the U.S. last week and its potential impact on the U.S. Federal Reserve when it convenes for its next meeting at the end of the month. You can see the FTSE in London up almost 0.2%, the Paris CAC 40 up almost 1/3%, and the DAX in Frankfurt up as well, almost 0.2%. And another one to watch, China's real estate sector, which represents up to 30% of the country's GDP. It's been going through a slump since 2021, since the 2021 default of a number of large developers like Evergrande. No end in sight to that slump. In December, the price of new homes in China's top 70 cities declined year on year by 1.5%. That decline impacting 55 of those 70 cities. This happening in spite of the government's recently renewed support to the sector. State banks unveiling $256 billion in potential credit to developers late last year. And let's end by taking a look at an interesting report from CNBC showing evolving trends in the business of Indian weddings. The piece shows that millennial Indian couples who are getting married these days are opting for weddings with fewer guests than before, aiming for a more personalized experience. Important to note that wedding celebrations in India can often draw up to 1,000 guests over several days. But traditions can be hard to shake, and accommodations must be made. One couple who managed to cut their guest list from 600 to 250, as shown in that piece by CNBC, then had to arrange a separate lunch function at their family home for 300 other people who are acquaintances of their parents. As much money is being spent, though, despite those changes, celebrations between November and December have generated 3.75 trillion rupees, or $46 billion for businesses in the industry, up from 2.5 trillion rupees in 2019. Aaron.
Cannot imagine being at a wedding with 1,000 people. Charles Pellegrin with Business. Thank you very much.